All right, we're back here with the Beantown Blitz Frang and Mack podcast. This time we're going to talk a little National Basketball Association, a little NBA playoffs. Chris, I know you're big into the NBA, as am I, but you follow the national landscape a lot more entrenched than I am. First round's coming to a close. The second round's really getting ramped up now. What were your thoughts from the round one games? Series?
Opening round thoughts, I'll leave the Celtics Atlanta series off the table for now because we've talked about that in our other podcast. Cleveland, Detroit, Cleveland sweeps Detroit in 4 games. I think that was predicted by every media pundit out there. As predicted, I thought it would go 4 games as well. But Detroit has a really bright future. Andre Drummond, they will be back and they will win a playoff series next year. That's an early prediction. But that was a young, exciting series. Kind of reminds me of last year a little bit with Boston and Cleveland. Kind of the perennial underdogs coming in and just kind of showing some spunk a little bit. Miami comes back, battles back, minus Chris Bosh to winning Game 7 over Charlotte. Disappointing end to Charlotte's season, but Miami, led by Wade, winning another playoff series. And Joe Johnson has been a key addition for them. Toronto finally won a playoff series since 2001. They were trying to avoid another opening round playoff exit, so getting by the Pacers, tried and true Pacers bouncing out. Golden State, Houston. Houston plays no defense. They don't like each other, no chemistry. James Harden plays no defense. I think that team as a whole disrespects the game of basketball. So I'm glad to see Golden State advance, although the injury to Steph Curry is huge. The Clippers in Portland, this to me was going to be, entering the playoffs, the most exciting series. And I have to say I was really disappointed. Clippers were a team that I picked to advance. The injury to Chris Paul breaking his wrist, Blake Griffin re-injuring his quad from early in the season, and they go down in 6 games. That was, I'm really upset because I think it robbed the NBA fans because of the injuries, which totally out of control. You can't, no one predicted that. I think it's, as an NBA fan, people are a little robbed to see that Golden State and Clippers won't play in the second round because that would have been a really high-flying, exciting matchup. But Curry's injury and Chris Paul and Blake Griffin went down, so that was a little disappointing. Oklahoma City, I think, is a team that could potentially make it to the Eastern Conference Western Conference Finals, but have a tough road. Took care of Dallas in 5 games. Now San Antonio absolutely walloped them in Game 1. And San Antonio walloped Memphis, another team that's been hanging around every postseason. San Antonio right now is my pick, as I did predicted back in the start of the playoffs, start of the regular season, preseason. I like the additions, bringing in LaMarcus Aldridge. You still got Tim Duncan and Ginobili and Paca and Kawhi Leonard, who just defends everyone great. I think that the worst thing that could have happened for Golden State was going for that record of 73 wins. Now that they got it, I still predicted this from mid-season when they were going for the record after that historic start. I thought it was the worst thing that could happen to them. I think San Antonio is the team that is the favorite. I would say the favorite to get out of the West.
Yeah, I mean, all great points there. I think Golden State, even though they're battered down, Steph Curry's the best player on the planet. He's taken down. I think their depth right now is just incredible, showing that they still come out and they still look, untouched without their best player. They just got, Draymond Green, Klay Thompson, all these guys that just step in and take care of business. And I think, was it 2 weeks he'd be reevaluated after that sprained MCL? So I think there's a good chance he could be back for the Western Conference Finals.
Well, he actually could be back this series.
Yeah.
Reports saying that he could play in Game 3, which I think is very optimistic. And I think that you should not play him until Portland wins the game because you rush them back early. He's the superstar. Klay Thompson, which I think doesn't get a lot of the credit that he deserves, is a superstar. He showed it without him, but you really need Curry if you're going to make a run, past the San Antonio.
Yeah, I mean, you're going to need him for that series, so they should hold him out as long as possible until they get to that series. One takeaway that I had from very recently, Game 1 between San Antonio and Oklahoma City, Kevin Durant looked quite frustrated. And as a Boston fan, I am very happy that Kevin Durant is very frustrated right now because if they get knocked out, you say in 4 or 5 games in the series, what do you think the chances are that he says, "I'm done. I'm not coming back to OKC," and that leaves it up in the air to where he's going to go. And I think Boston could be one of those teams.
Yeah, there's no doubt. I think even if, it's a 7-game series, if it's a 4-game sweep, which it won't be, I think it will be an exciting series. I think Kevin Durant ultimately is going to test free agent waters. I think he wants to be wined and dined, and I think it's also a little bit of soul searching. He wants to be taken out on dates before he commits to marriage. That's what it comes down to created a little analogy. He will pick up the phone. He will take sit-downs, meetings. He wants to learn about the city of Boston, maybe Los Angeles. Magic Johnson came out earlier today saying they should go after Kevin Durant as well. So he will take phone calls. He will sit down with teams. I still think that the favorite has to be Oklahoma City because he's not a flashy guy. I think the safe option will be saying that he stays. I think the number 2 option right now at this point could be Boston, playing for a young coach, hungry team filled with underdogs. He will be the clear-cut guy, which I think he wants to be because he sometimes gets overshadowed by Russell Westbrook. So I really don't think the series has anything to do with how the offseason will play. And by the way, let's get a shout out to San Antonio because there's a team that plays fundamental basketball. They play defense. And you know what? For a guy like, Steph Curry or a Westbrook or a Durant, yeah, it's frustrating because guess what? They play fundamental basketball. They pass it around. They play solid defense. So, somebody driving to the lane, they're going to put a body on you. They're going to rotate. So I think that is just, good old-fashioned basketball, which I love. I'm a hardcore old-fashioned basketball fan. There's not many teams. I think San Antonio may be the only one that still plays that way.
Yeah, I think that's just what everybody's waiting for is these Western Conference Finals between San Antonio and Golden State. It's going to be like the real finals because I don't really think there's a great chance that the champion's going to come out of the East and it's going to be the Cavs. I think the Western Conference Finals is going to determine who's the ultimate NBA champion. I think that's good. You can lock that in as a 7-game series. It's just 2 powerhouse teams. Everyone talks about Golden State going 73-9 or whatever, but the Spurs had, I think, a 67, 68 win season. So, and then they have the tie for the best home record of all time. I mean, they had a great season in themselves, and it wasn't really underrated. I think they're carrying a little bit of that chip on their shoulder because of that.
Yeah,
as they always do.
Of course, and all we heard this year was about Golden State and what they've done and what they will do, and I think Popovich is very systematic, like a New England Patriots in terms of football. It's all about the system. They're not afraid to replace you if you do not fill your role, if you step out of that role. I think the San Antonio and Golden State series will collide because Portland, I think, is great. I think Casey deserved Coach of the Year. Whenever you lose 4 starters and still manage to get back to the postseason, I think you're a candidate and deserve Coach of the Year. C.J. McCollum and Dame Lillard have done a great job. Probably the best backcourt in the NBA. They just don't have enough even without Steph Curry to get by Golden State. In Oklahoma City, I think this series should go 7, could go 7, but San Antonio, I think, is still the better team. They should be able to get by Oklahoma City. And, with that matchup being collided, I think it's probably the ultimate mismatch for Golden State because they jack up 30, 40, 45 3-pointers a game. I know the saying shooters got to shoot and you live and die by the 3, but I think that's the worst team that you want to live and die by it because even on nights when you're shooting 15, 20% from the 3-point line, Golden State can still beat you in other ways. They're not going to be able to beat San Antonio with struggled shooting nights. Remember, even if Steph Curry comes back, he's got to have a little rust in him, not being able to, get off any contact drills or any, lateral quickness drills or anything like that. So take that into consideration.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think the Golden State method, it seems they won the championship last year, obviously, but I just think this live and die by a 3, no matter how good they are at shooting the 3, it seems like it's going to fade out at some point. Like in the biggest game, they're going to come up ice cold because that seems like that's all they really do. They have good players that can do other things, but I mean, you watch them and it's just running down the floor, chuck up a three, and they're gonna make most of them, so they're gonna take you out with that. I just feel like that's eventually gonna come down, crash and burn.
Yeah, and especially against a team like San Antonio, plays fundamental basketball, unselfish basketball. I think you have to find – I mean, that. Don't get me wrong, that's Golden State's forte. That's what they have to do. That's how they play. But I'm just saying the floodgates were not always open. You're not always going to shoot 50% from downtown. So there's something's got to give. You got to get Draymond Green involved, which I think is the best utility player in the NBA with what he brings with, not so much as just scoring. He's, the other night he scored 23, but more as, grabbing 13 rebounds and dishing out 11 assists. The man does it all. So I would have Spurs probably beating Golden State in 7, and that means, yes, I would think that San Antonio could beat Golden State in Oracle Arena in that game 7.
All right, all great points. So that's going to wrap it up for this edition of the Beantown Blitz Frang and Mack podcast. Just remember to always keep tuning into our podcast and go online, beantownblitz.wordpress.com. You can follow us on Twitter at beantownblitz12. All great content from myself and Chris. Stay tuned, guys. Thanks.